Today we're going to rehab my Alocasia Odora, and this plant I threw outside in the spring because it had a lot of spider mites, so I figured nature would do what it needs to do and either kill it or attract good pests to eat the bad pests. So I think it did its job, but the one thing that happened was that this plant that was as tall as I was became a dwarf plant. First of all, they're not supposed to get direct sunlight, but if they do, some types like the Odora that are very hardy plants, they will kill off all their old leaves, burn them with the sun, and then rebirth themselves with fresh hardy leaves. So they're more, they have now adjusted to the new conditions and they become very hardy. But because they're in direct light, they don't have to reach up to see the light, so therefore they stay really short. In fact, all these plants were this tall when I brought them inside, but they've shot up to this tall because I've had them inside for maybe 3 weeks now because I'm trying to keep them from freezing. I don't want them to freeze. But now that I have them inside, I'm thinking I want to separate all of these babies and check out the roots and check out for corms. So we're going to go do that. We're going to go hunting for corms and repotting these plants. I'm going to remove it from the pot. You can see it has very good root system. The roots look kind of dry because I haven't watered it because I was going to repot it. So there you go. Normally I don't let my soil stay this dry, or I would water at this point, but today we're doing a project, so we won't. I'm gonna break up the soil as gently as possible. And I'm gonna try to untangle the roots also as gently as possible without tearing anything. A lot of the leaves that were healthy are dying off, the older leaves, due to lack of light. They're just older, so they're thinking their job is done. I'm pulling off these clovers right now. There's clovers growing in my pot. All right, so as you can see, the roots are coming undone pretty easily. The micro roots are a little bit more tender. They're ripping a little bit, but it's okay as long as the bigger roots stay white and pristine and healthy. So there's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 plants that I can see, and that doesn't include the corms. When I put this plant outside, there was only, I think, 2 plants or 3 in the pot. And now it's given itself copies. As you get closer to the actual plant, you want to make sure that when you're loosening the soil, that you're not breaking off any corms. And if you are, keep your eye on your soil to make sure they're not falling and landing in there. Oh, found a feather. Sometimes detangling roots can take a long time, but it can be very soothing. Don't let your mind trick you into thinking that this is a horrible chore. It's actually pretty relaxing. There's actually a lot of root rot in here, a lot of it. But the plant seems okay. It's okay when you see dry, dead roots that you pull them off so they don't rot into your plant. All right, so at this point, I have taken off most of the soil. We have a pretty good pile of dirt down here. And now I'm gonna break apart these plants. So when you break apart a plant, you wanna make sure you know the source. Is it attached to the mother? Is it sprouted to the side by itself? Is it connected or tangled up in the roots? How is it growing? That's what you want to understand first before you take it. You don't want to harm your plants. So, here we go. They all look to be coming from the same plant. They all look stuck. I'm going to grab these strong parts right here. Let me see. I'm going to cut this leaf off so you can see better. I'm going to trim so we can have a better view of what we're working with. All right, so these two bulbs are pretty huge. I'm going to gently separate them, shaking to make sure like the soil loosens up and stuff. Also wiggle them like this to get the roots to loosen without breaking them. Look at how white those roots are. Definitely don't want to mess those up. Okay. They are getting pretty tight. So now I am pulling them. All right, so I'm gently trying to pull these apart without breaking any roots. Great, so now we have two plants. And you can see here there's a baby. So this baby, oh, there's a baby corm coming from that baby. So I'm gonna put this baby to the side. This is very small, not a corm that I would sell, not a corm that I would recommend people pulling or selling or trading because sometimes they do rot. But I will definitely give it a go and try to grow it. I wanna show you how this is attached. This seems to be attached to the actual mother rhizome. So I'm gonna pull it back like a brake, a parking brake, until it snaps. Ready? Boom. And now you can see this plant has its own set of roots and it has a leaf sprouting. So this is a success. Baby plant. All right, now we're gonna do the same here. We're gonna wiggle, wiggle, wiggle until this plant comes out. Oops, I didn't mean to do that. I ripped off a really good, healthy root. This is growing a little baby corm, but like I said, they're so small, you don't wanna take them when they're that small. Also, here you can see this corm had a peel here, and you can tell that part of it is missing. So what that tells me is that at one point this corm rotted and then it actually survived the rot. It dried up, it's all healed. There's a baby growing here, which I'm gonna leave. And then there's the other little baby corm growing. So we have two growths on this baby with two leaves. I like to peel off all of this dry husk if possible, because when it gets wet, it gets soggy and it can cause stem rot. You just don't want that. So there's one plant. Now we're gonna take care of this big guy. This one has 3 plants in the same space. So I'm gonna try to separate them all. Looks like all of these plants are growing directly from the mother. They're not shot out like a corm with a, I call it the umbilical cord. So here we go. I'm going to do the same thing and pull it back until it snaps, making sure that I'm grabbing some roots of its own so it can survive and thrive. So here we go. There's this baby. So I cut this leaf off and there's this dead skin. I like to peel that back and take it off because I don't like that idea that it could rot or get mushy. So there's that. Plant number 3. Okay, now here is the other part of this plant. I'm pulling off all of the husk. See how it's wet under there? retains moisture and it's just nasty to me. All right, so this one's a little bit trickier. It's a lot bigger. You can see the rhizome here. It's double. Here's one rhizome, here's two rhizomes. So I'm thinking one is for this guy and the other one is for the bigger one. Ooh, wow. Okay, well, there we go. So there's one and there's the other. I opened up a fresh wound right there. So I'm gonna have to be careful with that. Put some cinnamon on it. Dip it in some hydrogen peroxide to kill bacteria. And then here we go, taking off the leaf sleeve. There's a baby plant with roots of its own. And here's this big mama. I'm gonna take off all the dirt. All this old dirt and old roots needs to come off. I'm gonna pot it in new soil. Also taking off all of the dead stuff, all of the husk, all of the soil, all of everything, guarantees, well, doesn't guarantee, but it helps with reducing the risk of transferring pests from the previous soil or plant to its new pot and space. All right, as much as you can get off without harming the plant. So there we go, look at all those roots. This plant is growing a baby leaf right there. And I'm gonna also take this off. Like I mentioned, I don't like to leave those on if I can help it, just because they rot, they retain moisture, they're just gross. There we go. So there's another plant. All right, this guy has 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 plants. There's 6 little stems in this little root ball. So I'm going to start to separate them. I'll clean one by one. So I'm taking off this dead stuff that no longer serves us. There's a corm growing there. Oh, so this leaf is bent here. That kink is bad. It may still survive, but with alocasias, it's very hard for that to survive. It'll probably start to die off pretty soon. There we go. Oh, I didn't mean to pull it off so horribly. I actually meant to, that was bad. I wanted this rhizome here. This has its own rhizome, and I accidentally pulled it off without it. But my hopes is that that rhizome will continue to sprout a new plant, and I'll just be able to have this other plant. And so here we go, pulling off that weird thing. There we go. Now this one, oop, that was fast. This one doesn't have a little sleeve, so just stays like it is. And this one has a baby on it. I don't know if I should pull it off or leave it on there. Oh, there's also a corm growing there. That's cute. All right. I'll leave this there, I guess. It can be like this. And now this is the last piece remaining. This is what I would call the mother plant. This is what everything else was living off of. So I'm examining it for dead roots. I'm examining it for corms, for pests, for anything that I could possibly find on this to make sure that it's healthy. There's not even that many roots really for it to be such a bushy mom, but I guess it was made up of a bunch of plants with a bunch of roots before. All right, so I have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, and 10 little plants in this pot that grew outside. So now that I'm putting it inside, I think that the height will go up. So this plant that you see now is a little baby dwarf. It will grow. And just so you know, these leaves are adult leaves. These leaves have been here for a long time, and this is as big as they get because of the sunlight. But once I bring them in, they're gonna become big like Regal Shield leaves. You just wait and see. Can't wait to do an update video. I am going to repot these babies and we'll see what that looks like. Right. So we have these different pots to pot these plants into. This was the original pot, pretty huge, and it did really well there for half a year. But now we're going to put it into separate places so they can grow better. I'm going to start off by layering a little bit of soil at the bottom so the plants have something to hold on to. So I'm going to place this rhizome and this rhizome into the pot. I'm going to put the longer roots in first, then this guy. And then we're gonna fill in this little side gap with this little rhizome that has a growth on it, right there. All right. I'm trying to make a pretty arrangement so that way, when they start to actually grow in this pot, it'll look nice and bushy and even. I'm gonna fill it in with dirt. But only to cover the roots. I don't want to fill the dirt up all the way to the top because alocasias like their roots to be tight, and so they don't really need upward space. They're fine with just what I've given them here. I do want to cover up the rhizomes though because I want roots to grow higher than what they've been growing before. The soil was pretty low on the other pot because I hadn't filled it or changed it since I put the plants outside almost half a year ago. And obviously when you put a plant outside, rain, animals, they all come and reduce your soil. So there we go. Now I will take this plant to the sink to give it a good wash, and that way it'll look amazing. Awesome, so that's plant 1 has 3. Now I have these 2 pots and I have all of these children. This guy's gonna go in a glass jar or a tiny soil pot just because it's so small. I want to take care of it by itself. But all these guys, I kind of just want them to grow together until the spring when I'll be able to separate them and pot them up in different pots for sale or trade. Or I might just make one huge bushy pot again next spring. And then we're going to place the bushiest plants in there. And like I said, I'm trying to make it all even. So I'm gonna try to see if I can place them in good spots. I'm putting this, actually this bigger one in the center so it can look like a bouquet. There we go. I'm going to hold them all together towards the center while I put soil in to make sure that they support each other and stand up straight. And again, I don't really want to fill the soil all the way to the top. I just want to cover the roots, make sure the rhizomes are covered, and this will prevent root rot and stem rot over time because there won't be all this wet soil that the plant has to work through. It'll just get what it needs. So even though this is a 4-inch pot, the soil line is right here. Okay, shake it to make sure that the soil gets all up in the roots. And then I'm going to detangle this plant to make sure everything looks perfect and beautiful the way that we want it to. This is like making a flower bouquet, but with alocasias. There we go. So now my one plant has turned into 2 pots. I'm going to take them to the sink and give them a good wash. This first watering will come from that water. So I'm going to rub the leaves up and down, and then whatever water flows into the soil, that will be its first watering. Even though it's not filtered or rainwater, it won't kill the plant this first time around, but I will water them with filtered water after this. Thank you for watching how to repot your Odora. Hope that this was helpful to you. Like and subscribe.